Welcome to ProBuild360 TV. Welcome to the Onsite Podcast. Our guest today is Andy Street. His resume includes being the MD of the John Lewis Partnership and the Mayor of the West Midlands Combined Authority. Andy, thank you for being with us today.
Yeah, very pleased to be here, Michael. I'm slightly full of trepidation, but let's see what we're going to cover.
I won't hold your feet to the fire too
Not
badly.
too much.
Yeah. So as you know, what we wanted to talk about today, as the chair of the HBA, my colleagues would string me up if I didn't take this opportunity to ask you about some of our challenges, some of the obstacles that we're facing, and we are finding more and more that the planning system is failing us in one way or another. I think that the bureaucracy and inefficiencies are a problem, and on top of that, the policies from affordable housing contributions, biodiversity net gain. There's other new ones like nutrient neutrality and some very sort of esoteric, far out kind of policies, and it's starting to feel like almost like everyone wants to put their hands in the pockets of the developer. And what we're seeing is that commercial viability for developments, particularly for SMEs, is being suffocated. And I've had many colleagues from the HBA just stop building new units and saying we're just going to focus on our rental portfolios now. And we know that you're having great successes. So perhaps you could tell us about how to set an example.
Michael, that's a very sweet way of introducing the question. And please, I don't in any way want to come across as complacent in this. We still have huge challenges with housing across the West Midlands. But I do think there are some things that have happened here that perhaps point to some ways forward, actually. So we know that the big national story is we're not building the houses that we need. The West Midlands is actually the only region of the country that is achieving its housing number.
Hats off to the Midlands.
And by the way, that is not because we have a very soft, easy number. Anyone from the industry will know the one thing that is true, always true about the numbers, is they'll be wrong. But our target was 215,000 homes over 15 years. It's about 16,000 a year. We're running about 17,500 at the moment. So that is a unique position. And, you know, you talked about planning. Behind that, and we'll get a bit more behind the detail, but the overall point is that that's been brought about because our local authorities are pro-growth, want to work with the development community, one, because they all understand we need the homes for our residents, but two, it's a huge driver of the economy, and it's often said that igniting the housing sector is one of the quickest ways of driving the economy forward, actually. So there's been a real determination to be pro-growth here. Well,
paragraph 38, I think it is, of the National Planning Policy Framework imparts a responsibility on the part of planners and the planning system to work proactively and to try to approve. So,
exactly.
Yeah, I think
perhaps one of the first controversial things to say is if you look at our relative success, the clarity in the NPPF and actually the need for the local plans to meet numbers has, I think, been one of the really important things.
Yes.
And one of the things I'm worried about at the moment is in the absence of that top-down number, as politicians like to describe it, what drives the total system. So I have found personally that top-down number hugely liberating for the system here in the West Midlands. But the other thing that then has happened is, of course, the duty to collaborate between different people across our different housing market areas has then driven out a number. And actually, one of the other things I'm slightly worried about is that the uncertainty over some of the NPPF guidance, and in particular how some of our local plans are now stuck. Take a wonderfully pro-growth authority like Solihull, now not able to complete its next local plan. So we do need to unstick a lot of that.
Yeah. Do you think that there's anything to be said for some kind of campaign to stimulate SME house builders by allowing exemption from, for example, increasing the level of exemption from affordable housing?
No, I don't. That's the next, almost it's the next chapter in our story. So we're building.
Please explain.
We're building a lot of total. We're achieving a lot of houses in total. The rate of house building across the West Midlands is about double what it was just 8 years ago.
Right.
The next part of the chapter, to your question, is the proportion of those homes which are affordable. Now, this is a combined authority stat, not a total West Midlands stat, but we have insisted on any scheme that we support will have a minimum of 20% affordable. And we've actually achieved on our full portfolio about 33%. And one of the ways we have done that is being very clear. No one is going to be exempt.
Right.
Once you start this, and some developers may not respect this word that I use, but once you start this negotiation, you mean it's always there to be had. If the rules are very clear, that's it, no compromise, then lo and behold, you can achieve it. There's other ways you can help SMEs,
Please.
but I do not believe that is it.
Well, I'd love to hear what those other ways are, because so for me, I wonder sometimes, take for example our Hawks Farm development, we put a pre-app in for 8 5-bed homes. Now the site is the last acre that's left of a 500-acre farm. So it was the farmer's homestead. And it's too small for the big boys to mobilise on, and we got it in there. We put in for 8 5-beds, and they would have been very nice, not, mansions, but they would have been very nice executive homes, something a bit aspirational. Now it's surrounded by Bovis, Linden Homes, Barrett's and so on. There's,
Where there will be affordable.
Massive amounts of affordable.
Yes.
My question, and please enlighten me, is that, and we've been, we got knocked back and said, no, you got to have a spread. That's what we've gone with. That's what we're getting planning permission for, and that's fine. We'll build it out. And there's, an affordable contribution on there, which we're happy to deal with. Yeah. But where would one see the aspirational homes being built then that are just a little bit of a private, our kids that are living in a 3-bed semi over there look over the fence and say, one day I want to live in that.
I hear this lots, that families want to have that aspirational home. Dare I say it, particularly a lot of ethnic minority families with multi-generational living want that very generous.
They don't want to live opposite, a row of social housing.
That's efficient. So let's be clear. When I talked about the WMCA funded affordable, where we've contributed to affordable, that is where we make a financial contribution.
Right.
My view, if there is no requirement of that financial contribution, is there can be exceptional circumstances, and the one you describe seems to be appropriate. But the principle to me of a mixed tenure place, it makes for a sustainable community, and that is what we should fight for. But if you literally are talking for about 8 homes, I can understand the exception, the exceptional case there.
It's nice
if there's any public money to go in for it, which is what I'm talking about, we have been utterly uncompromising over that. The next problem, though, is, of course, social homes. So we've talked about affordable, but of course, this is really where the market is not doing what it needs to be doing. You said right at the beginning about, varies, doesn't it? But about 220, 250 homes, which is actually a huge quickening from where we were 10 years ago. Let's just remember that. A lot of people don't remember that. And I gave you a good percentage for affordable here, but affordable is not the same as general social rent. And the area where across the West Midlands we know we have got to do better is this area of general social rent. This city alone, Birmingham alone, 5,000 families in temporary accommodation. We've got to increase the supply at that entry level. And so one of the really encouraging things for us, and the sort of pressure on us now, is that in our last devolution deal with government, the affordable housing programme responsibility of that was passed to us, dual key with Homes England for the first period, and then sole ownership of that after the last spending review. We have now got to bring our expertise to work with housing associations to quicken that. But if I was to be nudging the market, that's the bit we've got to do even better on.
So then if we come back to the point of how then do we stimulate, because the SMEs used to be about 30, they used to build about 39%, 2021. that SMEs were 39% of the house building in the UK, and that's down to about 10% now. And there's sufficient studies been done to show that SMEs being stimulated and getting back to those levels of 39-40% of the house building units being done by SMEs would increase the overall numbers. Yeah. My other point would be that it's not just about numbers. Everyone's focused on the numbers. It's also the quality of the homes,
which we've covered.
So I think we'd both agree that having SMEs, totally. Rocking and rolling totally. Would be a great thing.
The history of this industry, if you look at the real long picture, is out of the SMEs. That's some of the biggest construction companies of the future, and we need to get back to that opportunity. So that's definitely there. Yeah. So one of the things that we've tried to do, and please, I'm not suggesting it's a universal panacea, but it might just prompt some debate. We have tried to work with. They tend to be more medium than small businesses, obviously, but. Businesses that have the potential to make really significant contributions and grow their contributions in what we call strategic partnerships with the Combined Authority.
Wonderful.
And the key point about it is the trust with those organisations that we're actually saying to them, work with us on a number of schemes. All of our schemes, by the way, where we do this, are brownfield regeneration schemes, another very important point in the West Midlands. And again, it's another thing I will be staked out on. I do not wish to see permissions for greenbelt development. It's against all the sustainability and net zero ideas. I know it has to be done in exceptional circumstances. I'm not naive enough about that. And I know it's different in the southeast to the Midlands. But brownfield first.
Like Hawks Farm.
Brownfield first, absolutely. And then this strategic partnership that shows a trust, a working together, and
what's entailed in those strategic partnerships? Then what does the builder get?
What the builder gets is what you might call an understanding. I know that might sound a bit soft, but if you're actually because you can't be exempt from process, you've still got to go through due planning, of course, but just an assumption that if they put in a proposal to work with us with some subsidy with our brownfield first work, that it's likely that we would be supportive of that. So it's a sort of understanding a strategic plan together.
Is there someone allocated within the local authority then that will
local authority,
a bit of hand holding?
We don't run the local authority. Not. The Combined Authority, yes, there would be.
So there'd be someone allocated that would, say, for example, help put together planning strategies or putting together planning documents.
Or put together applications for viability gap funding, that type of thing.
Well, that's
is more
wonderful.
Naturally the case.
I wasn't aware of that.
That is what we've been doing, because our role in this, we're not the planning authority. I don't want to mislead any of your viewers, but we do have a role in thinking about where the total number needs to be improved through closing a viability gap. And my personal view is it is an appropriate use of public money, provided you can drive out private sector leverage many times over to do that. And what we're able to do then is bring back communities to use where we've seen dereliction for many years. So it's good on so many levels. So it's an assumption that we would wish to work with these strategic partners to do that.
That's fantastic. I wasn't aware of that scheme. We'll have to talk more about that separately.
You'll want one.
Yeah. Okay. That's wonderful, Andy. In terms of, stimulating the SME part of the house building industry.
I think there are some other things we can do to stimulate as well.
Please.
It's not new build, but this whole question of retrofit is really important, and
conversions.
We haven't actually got heavily involved in that because we are looking for things that can really make a difference at scale, really. But certainly the point I was going to make about retrofit is, again, becoming, what we've also tried to do is become a sort of centre of expertise in the region to help local authorities win funding, how they're going to deploy it, and then critically also actually paying for the training of people in these new skills through our colleges. So it's a thing about making the market. And again, in our devolution deal, the retrofit funding is due to be passed to us. So what I know a number of construction companies are concerned about is there continuity of demand here? Yeah. If we've got that, hopefully we can do that. So we understand that in this whole piece, making the market is a crucial piece as well.
Well, 100%. In fact, when it comes to retrofit, we had a guest on a little while ago called Hugh, who's from a company called Aero Barrier. It's a incredibly innovative new product and service that they do air tightness, but rather than going around with mastic guns and expandable foam, it's spray stations.
Oh, yeah.
And you can improve the air tightness of a property from 12 air changes per hour down to exactly where you want it. So you don't want 0 because then you need mechanical ventilation, but you can bring it down to 3 air changes per hour, which is just perfect. In 90 minutes done. So yeah, we're looking at all these modern methods of construction, these innovative new companies and products, a lot of them coming out of the US and Canada. And there's some wonderful things that can be done.
And we've been, if I'm honest, less bold in this area than in the affordable housing area. But we do understand that we can. I talked about training people to stimulate the market, but we can. There is also a role for us to stimulate the market in terms of, again, any cash that we are putting on the table. We demand these new standards.
Yeah.
And as I say, we can jump a little deeper in there still, but we absolutely get the point that we can judge that.
And conversions and permitted development. So there's the new sort of trend of going up under permitted development. I think that's been curtailed a little bit, but you can certainly put another story on an old factory building. We're doing one in Coventry on Foles Hill Road, which is a beautiful old listed building. It's a factory, and our clients, acquired it. Got planning for 24 apartments, and that involves an extra story on top, which we're going to do in SFS steel frame. Do you see that playing a big role in terms of delivery of the strategy?
So I need to be honest with you here. I think I know the site along the Foles Hill Road. I think I can place it, and I think if I've got the right one, what you're doing is very elegant. And it can be very elegant in how it's done. But I am naturally a little sceptical about permitted development just being a little too easy and sometimes not delivering the elegance or the functionality. And we all know of office blocks that have not been converted to a good enough standard. So I think you do then come back.
They need ProBuild on the job.
You need ProBuild, but you can say that I can't. And B, you do also need really, really rigorous planning around it.
Yeah. So otherwise it looks like a patchwork quilt, a little bolt on.
There is clear evidence that great care in this is needed, and it is definitely not a universal panacea.
We'll have to show them how it's done.
Yeah.
There you go. Andy, thank you for this. Thank you for this conversation, and look forward to seeing you again soon.
Thank you very much, Michael, and good luck to you.
Thank you.